performing musician to be aware of. We're in January 2022. Last year, I played about 250 gigs. I'm really stoked on that. I'm excited. I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm going to start this year by kind of reflecting through making this video. So I'm going to start with get good tone. Performing this much has made me realize that tone is really, really important. I don't think that's any mystery. A lot of musicians talk about that, but I've also heard people kind of make the suggestion that tone isn't as important. Now, what exactly is good tone? I mean, that is, I don't know that you can get an answer. Tone is probably relative. It depends on the setting that you're in. What a good, like look at punk music, for example. There's very successful punk music. There's punk music that people get really into that you could never use that tone to play jazz, or you could never use that tone to play a lot of different things. For a lot of different things, it would be a very unappealing tone. But for punk, you can get really into it because it fits the message. I've got a few different categories here on that, what can help you to get good tone. So one is pedals. Now, I've got this picture of my pedal board, and so I'm going to use that to kind of talk about how I use these to help get good tone. Towards the top right, there's an LR Baggs Venue DI. Now that allows you to control the actual specific frequencies. It also has a boost function. It also has a tuner. It also has a notch, which allows you to take out frequencies that are feeding back. Obviously, feedback is a really bad tone, and I guess even feedback is useful in some situations. So, you know, if you watch electric guitar players, sometimes they'll allow their guitar to feed back and get that really kind of screeching sound. They use that in the music. Even the feedback can be used. But the EQ is really helpful, especially on a pedal, because no matter what PA you are plugging into, no matter where you're going, if you've got that on your pedal board, you can have a lot of control over how your guitar is going to come through the PA. And you can control it right there at your feet, which is great. So you can try to get towards the tone that works for you. I've also got a Soulmate. This is a T-Rex pedal. So you've got a modulator, there's a compressor, there is a feedback eliminator. It kind of automatically finds the frequency and takes it out. There's also delay and reverb. There's a boost feature, and there's also a looper. Now, I don't use the looper, but I use just about everything else on there. And there's also EQ on the T-Rex Soulmate as well. But the primary purpose that I use it for is the boost function, having a volume control at my feet, and also for the delay and the reverb. Delay and reverb gives you a lot of options in any environment and can help you to get good tone. So let's move on past that though. Let's move to your actual instrument. Obviously is really important. Now, you could invest $2,000 into a guitar, or you could invest $300 into a guitar. I am currently using a Yamaha Dreadnought. I think it's an SG300. I can't really remember the model. I've been really happy with my $300 Yamaha. I've played $1,000 instruments. I've played $2,000 instruments. I owned a $2,000 instrument for a while, and I ended up selling it. And what I did is I took this Yamaha and I put a LR Baggs Anthem pickup into it. I've been complimented on the tone of my guitar many different times by mixing engineers, by other guitar players. I think I'm really happy with the tone that I get out of it. And with my particular guitar, there is, on certain frets, there's a little bit of a twanginess that can come out sometimes. You can put work into the guitar to get rid of that. But I've found I kind of like it, knowing that that's there and that's a tone and a sound that I can get if I want it. It's something that's unique about my guitar that I can use as I see fit. So I like that. So tone, I mean, that goes to show trying to achieve a really pleasant tone, a tone that's really pleasing to the ear. That is a worthwhile endeavor, and the more pleasing your tone is to your listener's ear, the easier it's going to be for them to listen, and maybe even listen at length. But that said, like I talked about the twang in my guitar and you know, kind of gritty punk, you know, electric guitar, these tones might not be a naturally soothing sound, but they're actually very useful. And so tone, as you learn more and more about the effect that different tones have and how to use them by playing out, tone is really, really big. Practice is going to be key in tone. The more effort that you put into your finger work and your control, then you're going to have a lot more precise control over the actual tone that you're getting. They say tone is in the hands, and to a great extent, that's very true. And then lastly, your PA. Whatever PA you're going through is going to have an effect on your tone and how the tone is conveyed to all the listeners. All right, moving on, getting a balanced and appropriate mix for the setting. There's a reason why why successful bands have actual live mixing engineers and they aren't doing the mixing themselves. A lot of us that are local gigging musicians, that's not in the budget, or we don't have that option, and so we have to mix for ourselves. But getting a good balanced mix that's appropriate for the setting is huge. And so you don't want to be too quiet and you don't want to be too loud, and that is going to change depending on the venue and the audience. And so part of it is you just got to get out there and get experience and learn more about who you're playing for and what different people are looking for. Now, I think, and I'm 35 years old. I've been doing music now, I'd say professionally, for about 7 years. I would say that generally people are looking for a good time. If you give 110% and you've put your practice hours in and you're there trying to give people a good time, then I think you can be louder. And at this point, I like to err on being on the side of being too loud, because people can always tell me to turn it down, but generally people will never tell me to turn it up. I used to always have it quiet. I would always go more on the quiet side because I didn't want to invade or intrude on what people do. But I've realized that I can go way louder, and I've had way more success with audiences the louder that I went. There have been occasionally times where I've been too loud and people say to turn it down. But I've also noticed many times when I get told to turn it down, I won't turn it down, or maybe I'll play a little bit softer because I kind of know where I'm at this point. I can feel kind of, how it certainly is hitting in my area, and I have a pretty good sense of where it's getting to in the room. What I like to do is start at at a volume that I feel like it's there, people can feel it, but I'm not dominating the space. But what I like to do is sort of win the chance to dominate the space. And so through being persistent and patient and trying to play really good, tasteful stuff that just complements what people are doing and doesn't intrude too much, but is just the longer that I can put out music that is overall helpful and people appreciate, then eventually people are going to give me more and more freedom to get a little bit louder and get a little more control over what's going on. And so when I say a balanced and appropriate mix for the setting, and this kind of goes into the next thing, which is play the audience. Balanced, appropriate mix for the setting, volume, your balance in your instruments and your voice or whatever you're working with. Effects also, for me, I use on the Soulmate, I use delay, and I use reverb. And these two are very helpful for me to get an effective mix in a setting, because the delay, just a little bit of delay, it allows the instrument to kind of linger a little more and fill up a little more space than if it's just stiff with no reverb and no delay. If it's very dry, it's there and then it just dies, and so your space is, it's almost like when you have the delay and you get it to a really good setting, it's kind of like there's a little bit of a wind chimes in people's ears or something. There's a little bit of jingling or dancing going on in people's ears that you almost can't really consciously comprehend, but it just kind of goes on, and it's something that you don't really have to work that hard to do because it's just an effect on what you're already doing. It can help just fill out the sound overall, so you can maintain a certain energy level or a certain vibe. And when the reverb is right too, like especially when you're outside, you can like feel it in the air. And that's when you get that, if you do too much, it's all watery and it's just not. But when you get the right amount, it just feels really good. I've seen a decent amount of people I feel like use too much, because it can be tempting to do too much because it feels like, oh, it's a certain sound or something that you get. But I think you should be a little bit easier on it, just enough where people can feel it, but it's not too intrusive. All right, so moving into play the audience, and we're talking about that volume level I like to start with at a certain level and win people's approval by playing stuff that is effective and appreciated. And over the course of time, what happens, this is the way I like to do it. When I walk into a room, when I start playing, people are going to be a certain way. There's going to be an overall feeling of the event in terms of how engaged people are, how happy people are, how much conversation's going on, how much laughter is going on, all this kind of stuff. You can sort of feel already, I almost just perceive it on a decibel level of how much sound is coming at me from the audience. And then I can say, okay, their energy level's kind of here. And so then what I'll do is I'll come in right around there with the music, maybe even just a little under. But then pretty quickly I'll come right, maybe even within the first song. Sometimes I'll go even a little bit higher than them right away. And I'll just have a little more volume, a little more energy to what I'm doing. And I'll just be a little above them in terms of my energy level. And when I do that, what it kind of forces is it forces them to raise their energy. I mean, they could fight me, but if I only go up a little bit, it's pretty unlikely they're going to fight me. If I just went full blast, just from off the top, just like going crazy, boom, and and with all this high energy, I mean, people are going to be like, what the, like, it's too drastic. And you might be able to flip the event, if you do it with enough confidence and enough of a good spirit, people might just go there. And it is very possible, but I think it's easier to just go a little bit above. And then what it forces it almost always, they're going to need to raise their energy a little bit, even just to continue talking. There's a little more noise in the environment. So everyone's probably going to raise their volume level a little bit. Okay. So once they've done that, then I can raise a little more. The more energy there is, it's just natural. Like people start to be a little happier and they feel, you can see somebody's dancing their toe, they're tapping their foot, stuff like that. The more I see that, the more I can see people are kind of engaged in different ways. And then I'll feel more freedom to even do a little more. Before you know it, if you keep doing that, the volume gets up here. You don't want to get to a point where people are literally having to yell to talk, depending on the setting. There are places where that is appropriate. A lot of different dance clubs, that's fine. But if you're playing a corporate event or a wedding, maybe not as much. Certainly a corporate event. Corporate events are different. Okay, I was going to say this point later, but I'll do this now. I was going to say, look for the good. So when you're playing your audience and you throw stuff out and see what works, you look around, especially if you're a newer musician, I think it can be very intimidating sometimes to look at your audience and engage with your audience because you can be very afraid of getting negative feedback. And you might be very sensitive. Negative feedback could really mess with you. And then it can start a downhill spiral that causes the gig to implode. But what I think you need to do is don't worry about that stuff and instead just always persist in looking for the good. And so if you see somebody tapping their foot, that is all you need. If you see somebody tapping their foot, that's a good sign. Like you're doing something that works well enough for them that makes them want to tap their foot. And they're into it enough that they're tapping their foot. And so okay, I got that. I at least got them on board with the tapping the foot. And then play off that and see if you can do more stuff and see if they start tapping their foot more or if they start to maybe wiggle their shoulders or something. If you can get that going, then look, and you might notice, if you have the one person tapping their foot, somebody else might notice them tapping their foot or start to wiggle, and then they're going to do something. And so you can start this chain reaction, and as long as you focus on the good and you don't worry about this person that's like just totally down or angry at you for trying to make people happy or whatever, don't worry about those people. Understand that if you just worry about seeing the good and trying to uplift people that are more ready and available for that eventually you're going to reach that person. And then you can, once you've succeeded with enough other people, then maybe you can turn to that person and try to do something specifically for them. You can develop like a personal relationship with these people just off of these subtle interactions. So play the audience. And I would say also on that, I used to play for myself. And that's where I say when you are playing a gig, the way I look at it now, this is a job. It really is. It's like I'm a contractor. I'm contracted to go do a job, and I'm supposed to go do this job, play music for people, and the goal is to dance until we get to the moon. Okay, that's usually the goal. Not always. There are times where I'm playing a wedding, and the goal is just to play something that really compliments a bride and groom as walk down the aisle. But in a lot of other settings, the ultimate goal is everyone just had the best time that they ever had in their life. That's the goal. You're there to serve. When you play for other people, you're always looking for how can you serve your audience. And you're not always thinking about how can you serve yourself. You should have a great time. Yourself having a great time is going to serve your audience. Don't make it all about yourself. Just do the job, do the best you can, and try to please the people as much as you can. That's what I think is the way to go, because that's what you're there for. Otherwise, if you want to play music just for yourself, why don't you just play in your room? I think just keep it in your room. Like otherwise, if you're engaging people, you're playing in front of other people. It's to interact with them and do something for them. I used to play a lot more for myself when I perform on stage. It was about getting a certain response, but now it's more about I want to achieve something for other people. I mean, and when I'm able to do that, I'm really happy about that. But I'm not so worried about like, oh, they have to like my song or they have to think this. When you bomb, it sucks. But all right, so kind of hand in hand with this is the next one, which is pick great songs. So a lot of songwriters, especially, they don't like cover songs. And they want to play originals. And I've heard a lot of talk about people wanting to play originals. And I totally used to be in that camp. I thought that covers were kind of bogus. It's like you should write your own stuff, be creative, be original. You don't have to play originals to be creative and original. You can totally be yourself while playing covers. And I think covers are awesome because they're great, already built frameworks that already have been well established in listeners' minds. So they're already hooked. The hook is already there. So it's a real easy in to connect with your audience. And so I think that's one of the ways that covers are just absolutely great. You still have to play the music, and you have to play music from your heart and soul. You have to give it everything you've got. And when you do that, and you're doing that with something that the audience is familiar with, they love it. And it's really hard not to love it. On this subject of covers, I've heard people say they don't want to learn covers that they don't like. And I've even heard a little fouler language about that people who play songs that they don't really like are sort of, I won't even go there, but I've heard some bad things said about people who do that. I don't really think that's the case. Now, I don't want to sing WAP, for example, the Cardi B song or whatever. Is it Cardi B? I don't know what. I won't sing the Lil Nas song. There's content that I will not engage in that I think is just really crass and is better. We would be better off without it in the world. But there are many songs that I never really liked personally, that I never envisioned, I never listened to. It wasn't music that I was really interested in listening to. But now that I'm a performer and people make all these different requests and I actually dig into these songs and learn them and play them and move through them, I found that there are so many great songs that maybe aren't recorded or weren't originally performed with a sort of tapestry. If you think of a song as a framework, as the structure of the house, what a genre is all the different sounds and particular tones that go along with that structure and the tempo that goes along with that structure. But your song itself has maybe a melody and has a meter and lyrics. When I started playing Footloose and La Bamba and these different songs, great songs just connect with your audience just about no matter who they are. And for me, one of those songs is La Bamba. And so I've come to think La Bamba is one of the best songs ever written. The riff is so infectious. It's almost not fair. It's like a cheat code. This is for anybody that wants to really connect with an audience, I highly, highly recommend learning La Bamba. Footloose is also a really good one. But there's a bunch of them. And as long as you're going with a lot of energy and intent to engage and have a good time, you're probably gonna have success. I think it's really good to have a lot of upbeat with good riffs, a lot of covers that have that or a lot of catchy melodies, just really sort of unforgettable melodies. Even Brown Eyed Girl, like people say Brown Eyed Girl is overplayed and they never want to learn Brown Eyed Girl because it's just everyone's playing Brown Eyed Girl. But here's the thing is, it's awesome. And when you play sha la 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 and you hit that at this energy level and you already had the people dancing, you hit an apex with everyone. That's just like, it honestly is like people are having the best time of their life. And so I don't care if it's Brown Eyed Girl or whatever it is. If whatever these sounds are that come out help people to like relax and dance and have it so much fun, I'm going to play Brown Eyed Girl because it's awesome. Now, as I move forward as a songwriter, that's a lot of what I'm going to be thinking about is how can I write things that create these opportunities that are with the live performance in mind, that aren't all about the studio setting and having a perfectly articulated concept, like I'm crafting a movie that's going to be watched. I don't know. I'm going to write more from, maybe I'll do that a little bit, but I'm trying to create something that's going to be lived and experienced and is going to be real and flexible and just awesome. So covers are great. And I think another thing to think of when you're thinking of picking great songs is the timing of when you do your different songs. And so for me, when I pull out La Bamba and Footloose, I use them at different times. If I'm doing really well with an audience and I get them, up here and the night's going great, then I'll go to them, and I'll try to time it in terms of where I'm at in the gig. If I'm at 2 hours in of a 4-hour gig or 3 hours in of a 4-hour gig, I don't want to go too early with my biggest, dancers, because then it's downhill from there. And so it's going to be hard to do other ones. I don't have enough other material that hits on the same level as some of those. Whatever your biggest ones are that are like that always gets the people. You don't want to play those too early. I generally think I've done that sometimes, but usually I think you want to save them. Sometimes I'll save them really late. If I'm not, I'll keep trying to get people into what's going on more and more and more. And if it's just really not happening, then I'll go ahead and just hit them over the head with La Bamba and Footloose, and at least give them that full blast. And they can't say I didn't try. That goes along with set list and also keys. Now, keys, I'm gonna transition this into Keep It Flowing is the next one. Keep it flowing. Now, on that pedal board, you can see right here, I've got a looper, Boss RC1. Now, the way I've done a lot of my gigs now is when I start playing, I don't stop. Every transition between one song to the next is a looped riff or a chord progression strumming pattern. That way I can maintain the energy from that song that just happened, and then I can set my Boss vocal harmonizer. I'll get into the next song and keep that energy going, and that way there's never a down moment. Those moments where I've just got a little guitar riff going on and are often a nice kind of like a little bit down from what we were just doing because it's just the underlying rhythm guitar, but I never let it drop. And so that way, there's never these awkward moments where people are like wondering what's going to happen next, or you got to fill the space. No, you've always got something going on. And that's what I think one of the things that's just absolutely great about the looper. Something as simple as this one right here. I'm telling you, it was when I figured more about how to use this, it really is a game changer because you just sustain the energy throughout the whole thing, and you can medley every single song together. It makes it a lot harder for people to disengage. Or to get bored. Then we got Keep It Interesting. A few of the things we've already mentioned are involved in this. The looper I use to throw on a loop so I can play leads over the top of it. Leads don't have to be complicated. Just try to choose good notes. Try to play them with good technique so you get a good sound. That allows you to break up vocals and instrumental sections. And so that way you can keep music going, but you don't have to be singing all the time to keep things interesting. You don't have to be some shredder on a guitar. As long as you can play something simple and melodic, that will allow you to break it up. And it just helps it keep it interesting and gives listeners a break from your voice, no matter how angelic your voice is. It's always nice to take a break sometimes. 3 hours is a long time to be listening to the same tones. On that note, we've got different effects. So I've got the delay and a reverb and a modulator. So I've got some songs that I use the modulator for. The modulator kind of makes the guitar sound a little bit like it's underwater. So I've got some songs that I do that are from The Little Mermaid. I use the modulator, and then that creates a different tone, something completely different for those songs, and it just makes it distinct and different. That's part of this. You want variety. So I've got slow songs, I've got sad songs, I've got sort of beach-oriented songs, like laid back, just like you're laying, getting a suntan kind of songs. I've got songs that are deeply romantic. I've got songs that are riff-based, like La Bamba and Footloose. Reggae. I've got fast folk ones. Town, oh, he'd many a mile to go that night before he reached the town, oh. Variety and effects. The effects help give you variety. These pedals help give you variety. I've also got the Boss vocal harmonizer there. That's for variety. You can add harmonies anywhere with the tap of a foot pedal. You just need to make sure your settings are right before you start a song, which the looper helps you to be able to set those while you've got music going on and on and on. And so you go and make your settings real quick, 5 to 10 seconds, boom, your settings are done. It goes off of your guitar. In terms of choosing harmony, it bases its harmony choice on the guitar that you run through it and also the key that you set it to. And the harmonies are great. There's a lot of different options. You can do third harmonies, fifth harmonies, seventh harmonies, and third, fifth, and octave. That's it. But you can do third and fifth together. You can do both octaves together. There's a lot of different options there. Mostly just leave it on a third. And then it just gives you something where you can add something and add that third harmony. Brings the energy up. It sounds really good. It's also got effects on the voice that you can use, reverb and echo. Like when you're going big in different songs and you can throw a harmony that's going to be basically pitch perfect. It makes a mistake every now and then, but for the most part, it's right on. And you don't have to pay that any more money for your solo gigs. It's just there, one-time payment, and it's there. And it's going to perform at the same level every time. And if I could play with backup vocalists, this would be awesome. Not practical in every setting for every gig. And so this is a really awesome tool to be able to use. Last thing, we're moving into do what you feel. And so I think that is key. That goes along with play the audience. I think when you just do what you feel, that's going to inherently be engaging your audience because you're going to be feeling things based on what your audience is doing. Everything that your audience does, if you're paying attention to them and listening to them, you're going to be feeling and experiencing yourself. Now, if you feel really angry at somebody, I wouldn't suggest like calling them out from the microphone or something. So if you feel that, maybe don't do that. Generally, do what you feel. And I would say do what you feel and look for the good. So if you keep looking for the good and you do what you feel based on that, you're probably going to have a great gig. So the more that you can stay in that zone and you do what you feel in terms of if you see somebody, like many times I just laugh into the microphone. I mean, laughter is a great sound. So if I'm laughing, I'm not worried about some kind of perfection of a performance. I just want to have a great time and I want everybody to have a great time. If we're all having a great time, to me, the song isn't as important. I'd rather just laugh. Yeah, I'll just laugh into a microphone or whatever. People are usually going to really like that because it's a great sound. People want to be around happiness. So if that's the way you're feeling, then don't be afraid to share it. And so if I start getting really excited, I get into it, I don't know, whatever. And I just do what I feel and try to have as much fun as you can. Interact with the audience how you feel. And I know there was one other thing that I was going to talk about. I mentioned earlier that I had something come to me and now I can't remember it. So that's where it's going to have to leave for today. So one more time, I'm going to run through them. Get good tone. Get a balanced and appropriate mix for the setting. Play the audience. Pick great songs. Keep it flowing. Keep it interesting, and do what you feel. And if you do those things, chances are you're going to have a great gig. Thanks for checking out my channel. My name is Noah Grove. You guys have a great one. Peace out. Las playas del Carmen y Tulum. Sinote, ukulele. Estamos feliz y perdido en que se ríe.